Welcome in to your weekly GA show, Lorna Páirce here on WLR, with thanks to Hooper Dolan Insurances, Dunmal, Waterford. Tomás McCarthy here till 7 o'clock. Well, it's Munster madness this weekend as 5 Waterford clubs step out in provincial action. Ballygunner great Fergal Hartley and RTE GA commentator Martin Kiely will preview Sunday's big match between the Gunners and Patrickswell. Rathgormack boss Stuart Power will walk down memory lane ahead of their first Munster match in 20 years away to St Joseph's Milltown Malbay. And later in the hour, we'll catch up with Galtier Camogie captain Anya Ling ahead of Saturday's Munster Intermediate final against Toomevara. Well, after completing a successful Munster mission in 6 Mile Bridge last Sunday, Ballygunner are back in Welsh Park for a first provincial meeting with Limerick champions Patrickswell. Sunday's Munster semi-final will be our George Corbett Skoda big match on WLR. I'll be joined in the commentary box by Owen Murphy, and our coverage starts at 1:30. Well, yesterday I caught up with Gunners legend Fergal Hartley, and I asked him firstly about what he thought of last weekend's performance in 6 Mile Bridge.
I suppose going up to 6 Mile Bridge, I think everyone was a little bit apprehensive, particularly going into their own club ground, albeit it is their second county ground. It's a club ground, you're going in with the whole club atmosphere, the Davy kind of factor, and thinking you're going into a call. And it didn't work out that way because we killed the game very early. I think we got off to a great start, and I think we were up 5-1 early on, and I think didn't give the 6 Mile Bridge or the Clare home support a whole lot to shout about, and kind of killed that off. Not that the game is over, but certainly any kind of impact that perhaps the home crowd could have had, I think, was killed relatively early. So from our perspective, everything went, I think, as well as we could have asked or hoped for.
Yeah, I think it was your biggest Munster Championship win in 20 years, Fergal. What impressed you most about the performance on the day?
Well, what impresses me most, Tomás, is, and it's probably not what you're expecting me to say, is the attitude of the team every day they go out. And I think that's evident from the championship in Waterford over the last 6 years, in terms of it doesn't matter what the game is, whether it's a Munster game, whether it's a first round of the league section of the local championship, the lads go out and they work the same way, they put in the same performance, their attitude is always spot on. A team has to be tuned in every game, and I suppose anytime you're champions in your own county, every team is looking to topple you and get you off your perch. And I think every day the guys go out, they're coming up against a big challenge because people are ready for them, and probably they know us because they've seen us and they'll see us on television and so on and so forth in Munster Championship games. So they know how we play, they know everything about us. And if we're off by 5% or 10%, performance drops and we can be beaten, but the lads are always right, and they were right again last Sunday. They were pitch perfect in terms of their attitude, and I think that's what impressed me most. In terms of the play, I think, in terms of the way we created space and used the space, I think, and getting ourselves into that half-time lead, using that space, popping over scores, and doing the right thing, using the ball well. It was overall an impressive performance.
Yeah, I think it would be understandable, Fergal, if there was a drop-off in terms of performance or work rate, but how have the players managed to kind of sustain it at this high level for such a long period of time, do you think?
I think, it's an overused word, character, but it's character and leadership. I mean, there's really strong leaders in the dressing room. There's a great team of people involved in terms of Dara and David as the management team and the backroom team. But there's great leadership and great character in the team, and they're hungry, and no matter how much they win, normally, success puts a blunt on hunger, blunts that sword, but for this group that's not the case, and they're hungry for more and they want more, and every time they reach one milestone they want to move on to the next. That's not something that you can train for as kids or coaches, or that's something that's inherent in this group, and as I say, leadership and character, I suppose, is what it's about, and that's what keeps this team ticking and keeps this thing in the right tune, at the right level, at the right pitch every day they go out.
Yeah, and it must have been difficult for them to come back after the All-Ireland semi-final loss against Ballyhale, after coming so close to reaching the All-Ireland final on St Patrick's Day, Fergal.
It was hugely difficult, and I suppose, obviously the guys had to take a break after that, and the championship came up relatively shortly after that, and first game was against Clonea, and again the guys had to go out and pull themselves together and get back up on the horse and go again, and they did that. So I'd see those first 3 wins of the year, I suppose, at a time when we're still licking your wounds from an All-Ireland semi-final has been every bit as impressive almost as the 6 Mile Bridge game last Sunday, in terms of the guys went out and had the right attitude. And that's something that over the years, my experience, I've been involved in teams in Ballygunner and elsewhere, has been hugely difficult when you're coming down off one success, or possibly even come down off one loss, as we were. It's hugely difficult to get yourself back going again, but this team were able to do that. So yeah, there was a lull period obviously for 3, 4, 5 weeks, but the guys dusted themselves down and got going again.
I suppose Desi Hutchinson was the star attraction again last Sunday. Fergal got 1-2 from play. I think he was fouled for 5 frees that Páirce Manny sent over the bar. Are you surprised by how quickly he's hit the ground running, I suppose in his first senior club season as such?
Yeah, well, yes and no. Surprised because when you think of it, a guy who hasn't played a competitive game since he's 16 years of age, to come back and perform the way he's performing, you would say, yeah, without knowing the person involved, I suppose you would say that's a surprise. But I mean, Desi, we all knew before he left that he was a hugely talented guy, and he comes from a great hurling family in the Hutchinsons, and they live and breed GAA down in that Hutchinson family. So in terms of him getting back into it and being fully committed to it, that wouldn't be a surprise. In terms of his talent, that wasn't a surprise. But I suppose converting all that into performance after being away for so long, I suppose that's the bit that I suppose we found very gratifying, I suppose, in Ballygunner.
Yeah, were you tempted to throw him in last season, because I know he was in around the camp towards the tail end of the Munster Championship?
Yeah, I mean, and he played a lot of the challenge games leading up to the I mean, he only came in just after the Munster final, and I suppose it was always going to take a little bit of time. I think he was just that, it was probably that bridge too far to say we're going to throw a new player in an All-Ireland semi-final, and I think it fell perfectly for him that he would go in the earlier rounds of the championship this year and bed in that way, and that's worked out perfectly for him. But yeah, it would have been lovely to have him at the end of last year for sure. Yeah.
Do you think that those fresh players have helped Darragh O'Sullivan this year, having Desi brought in and also Paddy Levy and Conor Sheehan as well? Because I suppose there can be a danger, Fergal, of things going stale at times. Yeah,
and no matter what team you're in, you need fresh blood coming into it, and the more fresh blood that can come in, I think every year if you can turn over 1, 2 or 3 new players into your setup and get them, that's exactly what you're looking for, and that brings freshness and brings competition for places. And I mean, our intermediate teams were going very strong this year, and I suppose a lot of fellas there would have been pushing for places, and the senior team as well, the likes of Kevin Mann, who came on the last day, and Cormac Power, and many others as well, Sean O'Sullivan and so on. But lots of players there who would have been pushing hard to try and get in on our senior panel and our senior team, and I think that keeps the thing fresh and keeps guys on their toes as well. And I'd always say there's nothing probably as motivating when you're playing as your position being under threat. I think that motivates players more than anything else, and certainly there's competition for places, and that's good for us.
I think attention turned pretty quickly to Patrickswell once the full-time whistle went in 6 Mile Bridge. I think it only took a half an hour for the bus to pull out of the venue. Fergal, how difficult is it to get players back to the same pitch in the space of 7 days?
Again, ordinarily I'd say it is hugely difficult, but this team have proved, even if you go back to 2 years ago when we made a run to a Munster final and were beaten by Páirce, and we played 8 Sundays in a row, or 8 weekends in a row, and every weekend, one after another, the boys got themselves to the right pitch, and that had to go through Munster and play Thurles. As you remember, we beat De La Salle in the county final. So in some ways you could say within the county itself it was a level playing pitch, in the sense that we were out 6 Sundays in a row, but so were everybody else. So it was a level playing pitch in that regard, and there was no advantage or disadvantage. But then we had to go straight into play Thurles, beat them in extra time, go on and play 6 Mile Bridge, won that game by a point. And my point being is that was 8 Sundays in a row, and these guys are able to do that, and that's what these guys are about. So yeah, will it be difficult? It will, but these guys are used to it. I think they're ready for it. We've done it before. I don't think it'll impact us too much on Sunday, other than the odd knock you get trying to get that to recover. But in terms of attitude, in terms of headspace, they'll be fine.
I suppose it's been lashing rain, Fergal, in Waterford here all week. Just looking out the window, it's pretty miserable. The going's going to be pretty soft on Sunday in Welsh Park. You'd imagine, from your experience, what does it take to come through these winter battles in Munster, as it were? Yeah, they tend to be that little bit different from your summer hurling, obviously, and in many cases, it wasn't the case last Sunday, but in our experience in Munster Club hurling with Ballygunner, most of these games come down to the wire. I mean, there's very, very few games. If you go back over, bar the 6 Mile Bridge game last Sunday, I mean, most of the games that we've played in Munster in the last 10 years
have been puck of a ball games, like we've had Bally game last year where we drew an extra time and so on. You know, as I say, Thurles Sarsfields went to extra time, etc. So most of these games are tight games, and the best will in the world, you can have the best laid plans, but in many cases they come down to just, you know, raw courage and character in the last 10-15 minutes when the game is in the melting pot, and when basically it's chaotic and anything can happen. And you know, you could have a situation whereby you want to make a change but things are so tight, everything's moving so fast, you can't actually even make that change, and players find themselves in positions where they possibly shouldn't be, just tracking back another player, and they can't leave that position, and it's just chaotic. But it's the team that can come through that period of chaos that usually prevails, and the team that has the belief in themselves. And that's one thing I think over the last number of years Ballygunner have developed for sure, is a deep belief that they can come through these tight games. And so I expect it to be a really tight game. Really good team in Patrickswell. You know, looking down the core of Diarmaid Burns and Cian Lynch and Aaron Gillan, I mean, 3 of the best hurlers in the country. If you were to pick your top 15 in the country, 2 if not all 3 of those would surely be in it. So we're under no illusion as to the scale of the task, and I think Patrickswell, any Limerick team now, given where Limerick hurling is, I think will have high ambitions. I mean, we look at the Páirce, have been arguably over the last 7-8 years probably the best club side in the country themselves, and Coola possibly have been the 2 top club teams in the country over the last 7 or 8 years. But any Limerick team, any Limerick county champions would fancy themselves to win Munster and go on possibly farther and win an All-Ireland. There's that confidence in Limerick hurling at the moment, which is something you can't buy. So I think, you know, I think it's a different challenge, albeit with the home advantage, and you know, home advantage didn't prove to be a significant factor last week for 6 Mile Bridge. I do think would we prefer to be here than Limerick? Of course we would. It is an advantage, but it's a small advantage. We're playing a different side. I think a really strong team, and I think we're under no illusions as to the scale of the task ahead.
And I suppose Patrickswell have produced many Limerick greats over the years. Fergal, likes of Richie Bennis, Gary Kirby, another one of those will be on the sideline on Sunday in Kieran Carey. As a member of the centre backs club, was Kieran a player you would have looked up to?
Oh yeah, I mean, sure, no one will ever forget the famous point back in 96, and he was a huge athlete. He was a savage athlete. He was one of these guys, seemed to be naturally fit, and he was one of these guys, he was a bit of like Tony Brown from Waterford, in the sense that he was the player just kept going and would turn up anywhere the ball was. Kieran Carey would tend to be there, and yeah, I mean, he was one of the best of his era for sure. He looked back in an era of the likes of Liam Dunn and himself, and there were some really great hurlers there, and but he was certainly up there as amongst the best of them. Yeah,
is there a bit of Kieran Carey and his nephew Cian Lynch at midfield, as you mentioned, one of the top hurlers in the country right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Cian Lynch's his engine and his brain are phenomenal. I'm again just watching some of the stuff he's done this year again in terms of his touches and his flicks, and just his awareness of space and awareness of, you know, how to draw a man and lay off a pass, and again, stuff that can't be coached. I mean, he's technically excellent hurler, but it's probably the bit that makes the great hurlers is the stuff you can't coach, is the stuff that's inherent, innate, kind of the ability to, I suppose, understand space and timing and so on. He has that in abundance, and at the moment, pound for pound, you'd have to say he's up there, one of the top 3 hurlers in the country, I suspect, at the moment, you know, along with the likes of the Shamie Callans of this world. But he's certainly an elite player amongst a great Limerick team.
And Fergal, thanks very much for your time today, and wish Ballygunner all the best against Patrickswell on Sunday.
Thanks so much.
Short puck out to Shane O'Sullivan in front of the 6 Mile Bridge dugout with Davy Fitzgerald and Tim Crowe and Saoirse Bulfin, and 2 added minutes in this opening half. Forward comes Barry Coughlin right through the middle of the 6 Mile Bridge defence. Is still Barry Coughlin for Ballygunner. He's going on to 21. Still Barry Coughlin going towards goal. Barry Coughlin, oh, what a save! Saved by Derek Farry. Still a goal chance for the Gunners. Dizzy Hutchison back at the net for the Gunners. 4th goal of the season for Dizzy Hutchison. What a time to get in the first half, injury time. But what about that solo run from Barry Coughlin, Shane?
I think he got a nosebleed, I think, when he realised where he was. He got past everyone, everything just opened up. I think everybody was waiting for the pass away from him, but Brian just kept going, went for himself. Good save, but broke to Desi, and he was thinking nothing else, only a goal. Great goal by Desi.
Yeah, back at the net.
Lorna Porca with Tomás McCarthy on WLR.
With Hooper Dolan Insurances. For business insurance you can rely on. More info at hooperdolan.ie.
So to find out more about Patrickswell ahead of Sunday's Munster semi-final, great to welcome back to the show RTGA commentator and Limerick Leader columnist Martin Kiely. And Martin, at the start of the year, was there many around Limerick that expected Patrickswell to dethrone the Páirce as county champions?
Well, I suppose, Tomas, firstly, thank you for having me on. The Páirce would have been the forerunners, I suppose, over the last few years in Limerick, and they would have been again at the start of this year. But there was always a feeling that there was probably more in Patrickswell. And I think the big difference in Patrickswell over the last couple of seasons is that they have a few really top-class players in the likes of Dermot Burns, Keane Lynch, and Aaron Gillan up front. So they're three key players. Their focus has been to try and develop other players around them, and they certainly are doing that. The O'Brien brothers have certainly come to the fore. Possibly three of those will start with them on Sunday, and so for that reason, Patrickswell, they don't have, they might go to sleep for an odd year or two, but in the overall, they're a very competitive club, they're a very competitive team, and I think most people, they sent a warning shot when they beat the Páirce well in the opening round of the championship, and I think from that day on, they were seen as definitely contenders.
And after the county final, Martin, you wrote that it was one of the poorest finals that you've seen for many years. What made you say that?
Well, I suppose just the general standard, it was kind of a stop-start. The Páirce never really fired. Patrickswell were dominant, but just the overall quality of the hurling, I thought, was poor enough. I think we see a lot of enough games at times, but finals normally, have that bit extra. We didn't get that in Limerick this year. A lot more was expected of it. It didn't happen. But from Patrickswell's point of view, the key thing for them was to be back winning. They have 20 championships to their name. They're a very competitive club. And from that point of view, whether they won it by 5 points or 1 point, it really didn't matter to them. It was about player development and getting into the Munster Club Championship. That's where they are now, and they have a fairly sizable task ahead of them on Sunday.
Yeah, so you feel there's more to come from this Patrickswell team on Sunday, Martin?
Well, look, I think they'll have to make a statement very early in this game, because I've seen Ballygunner a lot over the last few years. They're a top-class team, very, very professional, very well coached, very well drilled, and there's a singular attitude about them. I think Ballygunner, in their own minds, will know that they could go a lot longer, a lot farther in this championship. If they get over Patrickswell on Sunday, then they certainly will be the favourites to win the Munster Club. But from Patrickswell's point of view, to go back to your question, I think they will have to be really good to beat them, and I think they will have to put down an early statement in this game, because we saw what Ballygunner did to 6 Mile Bridge. They did well to win the championship in Clare, but quite simply they were blown away by Ballygunner last Sunday. Could that happen to Patrickswell? We just don't know, but if Ballygunner get to start and play with the space and freedom that they did against 6 Mile Bridge, then Patrickswell will be in trouble.
And how have Patrickswell's inter-county stars Dermot Burns, Keane Lynch and Aaron Gillan performed for them since they came back after the All-Ireland semi-final loss to Kilkenny, Martin?
Well, they've done well. They've done well, and the Patrickswell has always produced county hurlers, and they wear the tag of playing with their county very seriously, but their club is very important to them, and it will be expected that they have to go out and perform on Sunday, and certainly we'll have to do that. Burns will be in the half-back line, Keane Lynch will be in midfield, Aaron Gillan. Now, they're three top-class players. They're going to require attention, but it's what the other players in Patrickswell bring to the table on Sunday will be the important, because we all know that those three players will be well marshalled. So it's where the opportunities come from. Can other players lift their game accordingly? And if they do, then Patrickswell certainly might be in there with a chance.
Yeah, and I think one of the players that has caught your eye so far in the Limerick Championship, Martin, has been Josh Considine, and you think that he has a big future, perhaps at inter-county level?
Well, look, I suppose you can only go over what you see. He has played 2 or 3 serious matches for Patrickswell this year. He's a young player, and this is a big step up now. Once you come out of your county, you're going to be meeting seasoned operators, and we'll know a lot more about him next Sunday. He's a young player. He certainly has potential to possibly go to the next level, but there are many steps in the stairs to making it inter-county level. So you will have a fair idea as to where the likes of the Joss Considines will be after Sunday evening. But it's a different kind of a championship. You know, we look at some of these players during the better conditions. You know, we see now pitches are getting softer, conditions are getting harder overall from an elements point of view. So, you know, some players can rise to that and others can't. But for Josh Considine, it's a big game, and for other younger players on that Patrickswell team, they are a relatively youngish enough team. So have they the experience? They certainly will believe that they can do it, because no one wears the Patrickswell jersey without the expectation of, you know, we are good enough, we can compete. And that's how all Patrickswell teams have gone out, and their tradition means a huge amount to them.
And just finally, Martin, what impact has Kieran Carey had on this group of players?
Well, sure. Look at Kieran is, I suppose, is a legend in Limerick hurling. He's a legend in Patrickswell. You know, he was unlucky not to win a championship with him a couple of years ago. In the following year, he wasn't. He went to Kerry, I think, and Barry Kirby came in and won a championship with them. So, look, for him to win a championship with his own club obviously was a very proud occasion for him. He will have moulded them. He will have done a lot of work, and you can be damn sure that he was in 6 Mile Bridge last Sunday assessing and watching as to what parties will have to do. That is probably one of his strengths. He will have done a lot of homework on Ballygunner. He will know what the damage can be done, and possibly how they can halt this train that Ballygunner have at full speed at the moment.
Well, Martin, thanks a million for taking our call today, and I'll catch up with you again very soon.
Thank you very much, Tomas.